Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is CF Claire. Today we're going to do kind of a review of how the third quarter went as far as writing goals and some successes, some opportunities. I used the HB90 planning method by Sarah Cannon, and I really enjoy that. It's a planning system that plans in 90-day increments, and I really like the way it's set up, and I found it very helpful in staying on track and on prioritizing and being able to easily see and shift priorities throughout the year. So, we're going to look at the three goals I had made at the beginning of the quarter and how those went. We're going to look at the Kanban board, how that was going, talk a little bit about how I feel about the quarter because that's different from the actual progress of how the goals went. We'll talk a little bit about just like a mini garden review of how this year of gardening went because that's my major hobby and it's going to affect how I plan time for the fourth quarter, which will be the next video. And we'll talk also about how Q3 felt in from the perspective of like I'm a mom of a 5-year-old and a 6.5-year-old. So like from the momming point of view, how did Q3 go? And some things that we might tweak in the next quarter. So that's sort of like the overview. So what I want to start with first is I'm going to go through briefly the vision for the quarter. In the HB90 planning method, there are some pages on like envisioning how you want the quarter to be. So we're going to look at what I had written down for how I wanted my vision for Q3 to go and see how well we managed to do that. So at the beginning of the third quarter, I had written that I wanted to be more writing focused because in Q2 I had a lot of family commitments and garden tasks, and I was doing a lot of video making and editing. There was a significant learning curve for my writing process during Q2, and I had said that I could support this new vision for myself by not spreading myself too thin and by being intentional and focused. How do I feel like that went? I think I did very well, honestly, in terms of that. I cut way back on video making and editing. I had been doing a lot more. And I mean, the reality is it takes the time that it takes. And you have only so much free time. So I have been focusing on prioritizing writing over making videos and stuff, even though I really enjoy making videos and I have a lot of ideas of videos I'd like to make. I am being more intentional and focused. So I think I did pretty good with that. As far as family commitments, I mean, you just that's just life. You got to do it. So, and I'm happy, to do it. Garden tasks. I did a great job not doing garden tasks. So gold star there. The next question in that section is if you could choose one word to describe how you most want to feel in the upcoming quarter, what would it be and why? So at the beginning of the quarter, I had said that I would like to feel proud because it would mean that I'm following through on my intentions to be focused and I'm producing writing that I'm happy with. Do I feel proud? Yes, very much so. I'm very pleased. I'm very happy. I can feel that all the things that I'm doing are like helping me to grow. That's a good feeling to have. I am proud of what I've done. The next question is in order for Q3 to be a success, what is the one thing you most want to accomplish? And I had said finishing a solid first draft of Project Goblin because it's the first book in my first paranormal romance series that I want to do in Kindle Unlimited, and it's meant to secure reader interest for every other book that I want to write. And I did not write the first draft, but we'll get there. The last question in that section is what was I most excited about for Q3? And I had said that it was writing the first draft of Project Goblin and writing the first draft of Project Conjure, which is the middle grade fantasy detective series that I was working on. So let's take a look at what the goals were specifically. I'll put the graphic on the screen. The first goal I had was with my middle grade fantasy detective series. And it was for the first book, I wanted to finalize the outline that I had created in Q2 and also write the entire first draft, like fast draft, messy first draft of it in 40 time blocks, 30 time blocks, or 20 time blocks in a good, better, best situation. And task blocks If you're not familiar, it's the measuring increment that is used in HB90 planning method, and it's essentially Pomodoros. It's 25 minutes of working, and then the idea is you rest for 5 minutes, you do another 25 minutes. And I interchangeably call them time blocks and task blocks. So yeah, that's what those are. Did I achieve that? Yeah, I did, actually. I spent 40 task blocks finalizing the outline and writing the first draft. So I hit my good goal for that. And that feels great. I really enjoyed the process of that. It's middle grade and it's a fast draft, so I leave a lot of things out. So I think the total came in at like 28,000 words or something like that. And I'd like to do another video talking more about that experience because it's very interesting writing detective middle grade coming from usually writing like romance for adults, obviously. The second goal I had was for Project Goblin, which is my major project right now. It's my like main focus. Project Goblin is the first book in an interconnected series I'm doing where the comp series is Cressley Cole's Immortals After Dark. It's fantasy flavored sci-fi, lots of, fantasy races. So Project Goblin is a fae dragon romance. Super fun. I'm having such a great time. But the goal that I had thought I was going to do was I thought I was going to outline and fast draft the first draft of the book in 150 task blocks, 140 task blocks, or 120 task blocks. I didn't come even close to that. Like, holy cow. The reason I didn't think it was going to take as long as I would usually imagine it to take for, outlining and drafting a book is that I had already come up with a lot of things about the initial idea, and I thought it would be really, really easy to get down to an outline down to the point where I felt like I could just draft it, and that was not the case at all. So that's okay. So how long it actually took was 340 and a half task blocks to outline. That's not any of the first draft. And I realized that I am enjoying, at least with this book, but I think probably for a lot more books, doing a scene level outline, a first draft of a scene level outline, and a second draft of a scene level outline, and I think also a third draft of a scene level outline, and really answer all of the questions and really build up the excitement of getting progressively stronger scenes because I don't like the first draft process. At the moment, I'm almost done with my second draft of this like scene level outline for the book. And I can't even explain how much more excited I am about actually writing this story now than I was when I had written the first draft. I really liked the first draft outline, but now I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so fun. And there's so much here to work with and play with. And there's still questions I need to answer, things I need to think about. So I'm going to come back and do that third draft. And I think by then I'm going to be like I'm already like pre-writing a lot of things in my head. And so what I really want is to come back, find a fun writing challenge and just do it really fast, like in a week or something like that. But we'll talk about that in the planning for Q4. So anyways, I failed this goal, but I feel great about it. And the third goal, because I thought I was going to be able to do a third goal too, was going to be my adult fantasy novel. It's a fantasy romance. It's not a romantasy. It is adult fantasy with a heavy romance. And that's Project Level 20. And I thought I was going to be able to outline and fast draft that in 150 task blocks, 140 task blocks, or maybe even 120 task blocks. And I spent 0 task blocks on it because it took so much longer than I thought working on Project Goblin, and that's my main focus. So that's fine. And Project Level 20 is actually like relatively far along in the outlining, or at least in the brainstorming process. I have a lot of the story figured out. So that'll be fun. I'm thinking maybe I'll work on that in the weekends, something like that. So that's how the goals went. One of the other things I really like about the HB90 planning method is that it really kind of like walks you through how much available time you really have and sets you up for success when you're planning how much time in the next 90 days you actually really have to work with. And so I had thought going through it that I would have about 314 task blocks available to me with all the other things going on in life, and like having two kids out of school during the summer and doing the mom thing and all that. And I ended up being able to spend 380 and a half task blocks. So that feels really good. Now we're going to look at the quarterly review questions from the planner. I haven't filled these out. So this is where I'm going to say what the question is, and then I'm going to like answer it, and I'll get rid of any time lapse. What did you accomplish during this quarter? Make a list of all the major projects you completed. How will you reward yourself for getting so much done this quarter? And now I'm going to look through my planner, because at the end of each month, there's a section to essentially write down all your major accomplishments. So all I need to do is look at July, August, and September's section there, and I'll compile them into the spot. I finished the first draft of Project Conjurer, did a bunch of analyses of the top 15 or so fae romances on Kindle Unlimited, as well as the top like 15 or so dragon romances on Kindle Unlimited, and a few of the subcategories like paranormal romance, and they have so many categories. A few of the like most comparable categories for what I'm working on, in order to see like, are there any comp titles, pulling out any expected tropes people seem to find in these things. And that was really helpful, and I used that when I was at the beginning stages of Project Goblin, sort of pulling things I liked and making sure that I utilized that in what I was working on. Hopefully that'll pay off. I had a good time doing it, but I was also like, I'm not seeing anything comparable except for Immortals After Dark. I also found a few new tools and methods to help get closer to the story I wanted to tell with Project Goblin, so we'll get into that in a different section. I also did a bunch more studying of scene structure and like crafting scenes, and that has been very helpful. And I am almost done with the second draft of the outline of Project Goblin. I have about 8 more chapters probably that need to be worked through. So I'm very pleased with that progress. The second question is, what tasks didn't get done that you had hoped to have completed by the end of this quarter? Will you move them to the next quarter or let them go? So there's 2. I had thought I was going to finish draft 1 of Project Goblin, and I didn't, and I am moving that for Q4. And the other one was I thought I was going to be able to outline and draft Project Level 20, and I'm letting it go for now. I'm not going to move it to Q4. I am going to focus on the paranormal romance series. And the third question, there are 12 questions, by the way. The third question is, has your vision for your ideal life changed over the quarter? If so, how has it changed? What areas are clearer for you now than they were before? And it hasn't changed. I'm not going to get into what that ideal life is. It seems like the kind of thing to reassess and talk about more in the first quarter of 2026. The fourth question, are there any time sinks or distractions you need to be aware of as you plan the next quarter? Yes. We've got holidays galore, family birthdays, getting ready for winter gardening. Oh boy. There are 2 things besides those, though. There's the final harvesting of garden stuff, and we have a very small garden, like, it's a kitchen garden, right? And I've done very little with it this year, so it's smaller than usual. But we have a lot of oregano, and I keep every winter, I'm, like, reading all this stuff about how good oregano oil is for you and your immune system, and we've got kids going to school, and they're just sick all the time. It's just like, "Can I please, just like this year, learn how to make oregano oil?" And our first frost may happen next week. So I need to harvest oregano, and that's like a time sensitive thing. But apart from that, as always, meal planning is a huge time sink and just terrible thing to deal with. So figuring more out about a good way to handle that. The fifth question, what could you improve for next quarter? Why? What is your plan for making this happen? There's one big thing that I think I will do differently. I'm usually trying to be ambitious and do as much as I can because I'm coming from that mentality of being home with young kids all the time and just like itching to make progress. But I am feeling like I'm ready to let that go and to be more modest when I'm planning for how much time I think I actually have so that I'm fitting in what I think I could do in a modest amount of time because it's nice to achieve things and it's even better to overachieve. Whereas when I'm trying to be ambitious, I'm not finishing things right. And that's not like a great feeling. The sixth question: what are you most proud of from the past 3 months? What worked best for you this quarter? Make a note of any new habits. So there are two things. I'm really proud of finally finishing the first draft of Project Conjurer. I had thought I would be able to finish that draft in the first quarter and the second quarter, and it didn't work. It didn't make sense. And so I'm really proud to have finished it. I really like it, and I'm excited to finish the series at some point. It's a really fun series. And the second thing I'm most proud of is developing the tools that I needed in order to find the version of Project Goblin that I was really excited to tell. I talked about this in a different vlog on Project Goblin, but in brief, I had thought I had the idea that I wanted, that I liked, and ended up going in a bunch of circles, not feeling strongly enough about it. And I finally did find the version of it that I'm really, really excited about. But it took a lot of thinking. I'll link the video where I talk about the tool that I made that helped figure it out for me. The seventh question: what percentages of your tasks and projects did you complete? Did you hit the outcome goals you set for yourself? Why or why not? We'll actually skip that. I feel like I kind of just talked about that already. Eighth question: did you feel like your goals and projects this quarter moved you closer to your ideal life? In what ways? How can you set even better goals next quarter? So I really like these questions because it's on reflection like this that sometimes you come to realizations that's just like, oh, yeah, okay, I can see how that doesn't really fit in. The goal that I made doesn't really fit in with what I'm trying to achieve here. Because Project Conjurer, while I love it and I'm really excited about it, and the reason that I was writing it was to share it with my kids, which that's a worthwhile goal to have. It's not actually moving me towards my ideal life because my ideal life really would revolve more around that Kindle Unlimited romance as what I'm working on and releasing. So having a middle grade trilogy that I'm really focusing on, it just doesn't really make sense. So there are two other books in that series, but for that reason, I am just like pausing on those and I'm not going to dedicate my core writing time to them. I'm not giving up on them. I'm going to write them eventually and I love those stories, but it's just not the priority right now. It's the same story for Project Level 20 because that's adult fantasy that I want to traditionally publish. And I just need to focus on Kindle Unlimited romance stuff right now. The next question: did your goals or projects make you feel overwhelmed throughout the quarter, or did you feel empowered? What can you change for next quarter? I did feel a little bit overwhelmed because it became apparent pretty quickly that I just like definitely wasn't going to be able to do anything with that third goal with Project Level 20. And I also wasn't going to achieve the second goal of like actually drafting Project Goblin. I thought I could do it. Seemed reasonable at the time. No. So I did fairly early on adjust my goals and just sort of like take that third goal off the table altogether and try to focus on getting through to a first draft of Project Goblin. And then even at a certain point it was like, okay, that's not going to work. Okay, let's reassess that. Can I get to the end of a second draft of the outline? And I was like, no, okay, I can't do that. Can I get to at least a certain point in it? And I was able to achieve that. It was for that overwhelmed feeling reason. That's why I'm going to plan to have less time to work with so we can feel like we're achieving things. The next question: in what ways did you support yourself and your mental health this quarter? How can you continue to do this even more next quarter? I feel like I did pretty well with this. There are three things. I was very kind to myself. I didn't make myself work if I was really feeling too tired or something. I don't really have a motivation problem. Usually more like I don't have the energy because I get really low energy sometimes, especially during July because it was so hot. It was so hot. If I've been working on a certain project for maybe too long without a break, I can tell that I'm not refilling my creative well enough and that I'm really getting like drained dry. So I do allow myself, if I just am not feeling it, I let myself just have a creative well day. And I'm just like, okay, that's fine. Then I'm going to read any book that I want to, I'm going to do this or that or whatever feels like it's what I want to be doing. Because then usually if I do that for one, maybe 2 days, usually just one, then the next morning I wake up and I'm like, okay, I read that book. I've got some ideas of what I want to do as I come back to my project. So that works out really well for me. I'm also understanding of myself and my like I set too crazy goals sometimes. So what I had talked about like I just like adjust goals, I'm not pushing to complete things and being like, oh, I'm failing, I try to achieve it because I want to achieve it, but I adjust when needed. And I'm just like, okay, I guess, live and learn. And the other thing is I instigated a no reading headlines or watching news or anything to do with the news until after I have written for the day and I'm done. And that is good. And I'm going to keep doing that. I don't think there's anything different I need to do as far as this stuff. The next question, what habits can you cultivate in the upcoming quarter to bring even more success to your 90-day plan? I'm actually not really a big habit person. I'm so motivated that I mean that is the habit. It's just like wanting to do stuff and just having a high drive to do stuff. So usually it's just like, do I have the energy? Can I actually do this? Do I have to be mom right now and I can't, whatever. So I actually like I have no habits I need to change or anything. The next question, are there any other important notes you want to make about how you did this quarter? No, not really. Oh, that's the last question. All right, great. So that's our review of the quarter as far as HB90 goes. And then I just wanted to do a little bit of a review of the quarter from gardening perspective. July was super hot. There was no rain. I barely watered. So the garden slowed way down and it was not doing very well. I basically just harvested and I had really low energy during July. I have like some notes here. There was a lot of like social family stuff to do. So July garden, mm, not looking good. In August, it was way colder than our typical August, and the nights were ridiculous. Like it was in the 40s at night in August. Usually it's in the 60s at night. Like it was crazy. There was also still no rain, and I was also still really not watering. So the garden slowed way down. And all of the heat loving stuff was like, I hate this. It's cold. There's no water. This is terrible. So we still had things to harvest. It was just like, there was no more green beans. That was that. And I love green beans. They're one of my favorite things. So, oh my God. And I was very impatient during the month of August. This is not like necessarily garden related, but just like how the month was. I was so impatient. School was starting beginning of September, and I was just, I'm ready. I'm ready to be able to just like have no one ask me to make them food for, a couple hours at a time. And I was also in a really frustrating spot because at that time I was still going in all these circles with Project Goblin and I had no idea if I would ever actually like find the story. And I was like, am I gonna have to give up on this idea? Like, oh God, no. So it was a frustrating month because I was also super motivated. So it was like, I'm motivated, but I'm still mom. I still have these commitments and I still can't figure out this freaking story. So yikes. September was much better. It was cold still no rain, but I watered the garden at least twice. And I think that did a lot. And I also started walking at the local track near us once the kids started school. Because I was like, oh my God, like I could actually walk at an adult human pace without, young children. Because my son in particular, my 5-year-old, he just likes to walk at his own speed. And that's not my speed. So that was so nice. I think that was really good for my mental health too. And it was beautiful fall weather. I gave up entirely on doing any yard work. I haven't mowed the lawn in a long time. Weed whacking, I don't know her. And I actually transplanted some kale into the greenhouse so that hopefully I will be able to have kale at least like going through December. January may kill it, but at least through December because I love kale. So that felt really good. So I also have a couple little notes on successes and failures with the garden. One success was I set myself up at the beginning of the season to be able to choose if I wanted to do more, and I really like that. I did a bunch of succession chaos gardening once a month, I think, during this quarter. I did some just random seed sowing of things that I like. So it was like carrots and kales and cabbages and things like that. And I mixed all the seeds together. I threw them in a patch and I was like, if anything comes up, great. And I could transplant them into better spacing where they would do well if I wanted. And if I don't, whatever. Here's this. And that was great. That's how I was able to transplant kale into the greenhouse. We actually had pretty consistent, like, acceptable harvests, considering that it's just my husband and I who really like eat vegetables. I mean, we were able to eat modestly of potatoes and carrots and tomatoes and peppers and green beans before August. And we're still, pulling in kale and cabbage. And, the third thing is the garden actually did great considering the conditions. And that's because we pretty deeply used wood chip mulch at the beginning of the season. So it really retained a lot of any water available and it helped with the heat moisture loss from the sun. And the fourth thing is the greenhouse tomatoes actually did really, really well, even though the soil in there is terrible. So that was a huge win. There's a noticeable modest improvement in the soil structure of the greenhouse soil because I did cover crops during the summer. And that's great because it had been literally sand gravel. Like, it was just bad news. I actually do have carrots that I can pull from the ground to make soup packs, which I like to make in the fall, which is basically just like freezing packs of chopped carrots and celery and onions in prepared portions. So I could just, like, in the winter, take a soup pack and be like, we're having soup for dinner and add it to broth and, XYZ. The seventh thing is that I have a lot of oregano. So I could, I have the choice, I have the option of maybe this year I will make oregano oil. There are a few opportunities to work on. So being more thoughtful with where and when to mulch, because one of the huge detriments during the season was just like we really deeply mulched at the beginning of the season, and then it's a huge pain to try to chaos garden anywhere. If you have like deep mulch to move, it's just like a non-starter. I'm not going to. The second opportunity is be consistent with watering. Hi, I think that will do a lot. The third thing is to set up bean climbing structures before July. Hello. The fourth thing is plant more tomatoes. Always plant more tomatoes. And the fifth thing, plant where the soil is actually good, not where I wish it would be good, which is what happened with our peppers. I was like, I would love the peppers to be in this spot. And the soil was like, we're not good. These peppers aren't going to grow. And they didn't. So, and the sixth thing is to coordinate with my husband about a good time to consistently, like, flip the compost pile, because it is a lot of work and I can do about 10 minutes at a time and then I want to stop. So if we just are able to switch off every 10 minutes, then, like, that's fine, right? So that's the end of the garden stuff. Let's talk about how momming during Q3 went. So I'm home with the kids, not anymore because they're in school, but I was home with them over the summer. And historically, I've always had such a hard, it's the balance of it all, which is not like, I mean, this is not me specifically the only one. Like, I think that's one of the most common problems that parents have, right? Is like, how do you balance being what feels like a good, involved parent and your hobbies and your interests and any, like, work you have and, like, blah, 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 blah. So I have a lot of historic guilt on, like, feeling like I should just always be doing more for the kids, with the kids, when in reality, I do a lot. I do a lot, and it's not like a terrible thing that mom has a dream and something that she would like to have as a career, so it's not the kind of thing that I want to feel guilty about. And I think one of the things that would be really helpful that I'm going to bring into Q4 is backwards planning, being like, by the end of the quarter, what's the feeling that I want to have about what we did as a family, what I did with the kids as mom, what feeling do I want that to be, what's the most important thing. And then also, like, on a month by month basis, just being like, is there anything specific that I'm hoping I do with the kids in October, in November, in December? And keeping a running list of things that I do with the kids. You know, like if we do a baking day, we make cookies together. Like I want to write that down because by the end of the quarter, I'll have a list of like, here are the things that you did with the kids, right? Like you don't need to feel guilty because here's all this stuff, you know?
Here's the Kanban board situation. All of this pink are things I was working on for Project Goblin. The chapters are if I have gone through the second draft of the outline of those chapters. And these are components of the story I just haven't finalized, and I'll move those over to next quarter. And then I had the same things for my other two goals on this top one, and I took that down already. This is a mock-up I made for a gift I'm giving my nephew, a little picture routine magnet board thing. It's more for his mom, but you know, being 2 years old, what are you gonna give a 2-year-old? You know, things for the mom. So I already took that down. These, by the way, are just little, it's a magnetized whiteboard, and I just like to be able to move them around. Super fun.
So that's how the third quarter went for me. I would love to hear how the last couple months went for you. Do you use a planning method like this? Do you wish you would use a planning method? Are you more interested in this kind of thing? Any big successes you had? Any things that you would like to do differently next quarter? And I'll be back soon with a planning for Q4 video and we'll go through that. So thanks for hanging out. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great fourth quarter. I'll see you in the next one.